Chào các bạn đến với tập 18 của lớp thạc sĩ Ngôn ngữ Anh môn Sociolinguistics hay ngôn ngữ học xã hội. Đây không phải là clip dạy học hay là clip thuyết trình để mình lấy điểm, mà chỉ là một cái clip để mình lưu lại những cái kỷ niệm với các slide effects. Thank you for watching and special thanks to Mr. Quang for showing me how to create the slide effects. I will present part 1 of our topic, verbal politeness, interactional options. My part is called What is politeness and the core theories. In this part, I will explain what politeness means in sociolinguistics, how politeness works differently across cultures, and why theories like discernment, whack-a-mole, phase, negative phase, positive phase are important. Now, let's begin with a real-life example of politeness. Let's watch the video.
Do you want whipped cream on that?
You have to ask?
So, in this example, Alan, who came from New York, ordered a drink at a restaurant in Michigan. The server asked her, "Do you want whipped cream on that?" Alan joked, "You have to ask." For Alan, this joke meant an enthusiastic yes. In other words, she meant, "Of course I want whipped cream." But the reaction was different. The server was confused, stopped talking, and did not understand the joke. The sociolinguistics meaning here is very important. In New York, Alan's joke was a friendly way to show enthusiasm, but in Michigan, servers do not usually expect jokes from strangers in this kind of business conversation. So, politeness depends completely on where you grew up and the rules you learned there. Alan used a joke to make the business conversation feel more friendly and close. However, because the server followed a different set of social rules, the joke did not work. So the problem was not grammar. The problem was politeness, context, and sociolinguistics meaning. Now, let's move to the definition of politeness and Japanese example. Politeness means the actions that speakers take to avoid social problems or arguments during a conversation. So politeness is not only about being nice. It is about avoiding conflict, protecting relationships, and choosing language carefully. Different languages express politeness in different ways. Some languages use completely different words for the same thing, depending on the respect relationship between speakers. A clear example is Japanese. Let's watch the video.
召し上がりますか？食べます。いただきます。
Now, let's look at the verb to eat in Japanese. In this conversation, we have a student, Tanaka, and a professor. Tanaka uses this honorific form to show respect to the person eating.
召し上がりますか？
Then the professor replies with the unmarked or normal form.
食べます。
This is the normal form of the verb to eat. After that, Tanaka replies using the humble form.
いただきます。
This humble form lowers Tanaka himself before the professor. So the same verb to eat has different forms depending on the relationship between speakers. Tanaka uses honorific form to raise the professor. Then he uses the humble form to lower himself. Both speakers still add the polite ending mas to the verb. Also, the professor uses the respectful title san for Tanaka. So, this example shows that in Japanese, politeness is not only expressed through extra polite words. It is built into the grammar, the verb forms, and the respect relationship between speakers. Let me ask everyone, can you think of a similar example in Vietnamese? For example, do we speak the same way to a teacher, a parent, a close friend? Probably not. In Vietnamese, we change pronouns and titles such as em, con, cháu, cô, thầy, anh, chị, bác, depending on age, status, and relationship. So, like Japanese, Vietnamese also shows that politeness depends strongly on social roles and relationships. Now, we move to the concept of discernment or whack-a-mole. In Japan, being polite means speakers must pay close attention to their relationship with the listener in a specific place and time. This is called discernment. Discernment means that speakers need to be sensitive to social relationship and settings. They need to use the correct rules for respect. The Japanese word for discernment is whack-a-mole. This concept was introduced by the linguist Sachiko Ide. Whack-a-mole means paying attention to how people depend on each other and how relationships work. Ide argues that wakimai is a better way to explain Japanese politeness than Western models that focus only on individual choices. So in some Western models, politeness is seen as something that speaker chooses freely. The speaker decides how polite they want to be. But in Japanese politeness, according to Ide, the speaker must understand the relationship, the setting, and the social expectations. So politeness is not always an individual choice. Sometimes politeness means following the correct social rule. For example, a student cannot simply choose to speak to professor like a close friend. The relationship already requires certain respectful forms. So the main idea of this line is wakimai means knowing the relationship, knowing the setting, and using the correct forms of respect. Now, let's look at an overview of politeness theory. There are three important approaches on this slide. The first one is the philosophical view connected to Adam Smith. Adam Smith believed that nature gave humans a natural desire to please others and a dislike of offending them. Later, Dan Ariely in 2008 said that this desire is the source of polite behavior. So from this view, people are polite because they naturally want to please others and they do not want to offend people. The second view is the practical view by Jeffrey Leach. According to Leach, an action is polite if the speaker shows high value for the listener and low value for themselves. For example, if I say, "Could you possibly help me with this?" I make the listener sound important and make myself sound less demanding. So, in Leach's view, politeness means giving more value to the listener and less value to yourself. The third view is the dominant framework by Penelope Brown and Stephen Levinson. This is the most famous model for analyzing politeness. Almost all new theories of politeness are written as a response to their work. So, after this slide, I will focus more on Brown and Levinson's theory, especially the concept of face. The core concept in Brown and Levinson's theory is face. An origin of the concept of face comes from the sociologist Erving Goffman. Goffman described face as our social persona or image. In simple words, face means the image of ourselves that we want other people to recognize. Goffman's main point is that we only have face if other people in our community give it to us or recognize it. So face is not something we own alone. It depends on the social recognition. Brown and Levinson later updated this idea. They narrowed down the definition. They focused on how individuals want to protect their face from damage when they talk to others. In conversations, face can be damaged in many ways. For example, if we criticize someone directly, we may damage their image. If we order someone to do something, we may damage their freedom. So, we choose to be polite because we want to protect two different types of face. These two types are negative face and positive face. According to Brown and Levinson in 1987, adults have two distinct types of face once. The first type is negative face. Negative face is the desire of every adult to act freely without being stopped or controlled by others. The simple meaning is don't get in my way or don't tread on me. So negative face is about freedom and independence. For example, if I say, "Send me the file now," this may threaten your negative face because I'm controlling your action. A more polite way is, "Could you please send me the file when you have time?" This sounds more polite because it gives the listener more freedom. The second type is positive face. Positive face is the desire of every member that their wants and values are liked and accepted by at least some other people. The simple meaning is, "Love me, love my dog." This means if you like me, please also respect what I like, what I value, or what I care about. For example, if I say your idea is bad, I might threaten your positive face because I reject your idea and your value. A more polite way is, "That's an interesting idea. Maybe we can develop it a little more." This protects positive face because it shows some approval before giving a suggestion. One important note is that face wants are not born with us. We must learn and acquire them as competent members of a community. So politeness is socially learned. We learn what we count as polite or impolite from our community. Finally, let's look at cultural differences in face orientation. What is considered polite changes from place to place. Some societies focus more on negative face. This means showing respect and deference. These societies focus on social distance. It is rude to act like you know someone better than you actually do. Let's watch the video.
Guten Tag, Frau Professor Dr. Nussbaum.
For example, in Germany, students use full professional titles to address professors.
Guten Tag, Frau Professor Dr. Nussbaum.
This long title shows respect, status, and professional distance. In Japan, students use professor's last name plus title sensei to maintain a respectful social distance. So, in Germany and Japan, politeness may mean keeping the correct distance. However, other societies focus more on positive face. This means showing friendliness. These societies prefer people to be friendly and close. It may be rude to highlight too much social distance. So, in Australia and the US, politeness may mean friendliness, equality, and closeness, but social factors are also important. Younger professors are called by their first names more often than older professors. Female academics also often experience unequal treatment compared to men. So, politeness is not only about culture, it is also connected to age, gender, power, and social expectations. Now, if we think about Vietnam, we can see both orientations. In formal setting, Vietnamese speakers care a lot about titles, age, hierarchy, and respect. But in friendly settings, we also use closeness and family-like terms such as anh, chị, em, cô, chú, thầy, cô. So Vietnam is a good example showing that politeness can involve both distance and closeness. To summarize my part, politeness means the actions speakers take to avoid social problems or argument during conversation. The example of Alan shows that politeness depends on where people grew up and the rules they learned. The Japanese example shows that politeness can be expressed through different verb forms such as honorific, unmarked, and humble forms. The concept of wakimae shows that Japanese politeness is strongly connected to discernment, social relationship, and setting. Then Brown and Levinson's theory explains politeness through face. Negative face is about freedom and not being controlled. Positive face is about being liked, accepted, and valued. Finally, cultural differences show that some societies focus more on negative face and social distance, while others focus more on positive face and friendliness. So, the main message is, politeness is not universal in one simple way. It is socially learned, culturally shaped, and connected to relationship. That is the end of my part. Thank you for listening.